Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
We have a big solar flare coming in, so we're out here on an aurora hunt. It's a CME, it's dynamite, coronal mass ejection. It's when the sun, it kicks off energy and these explosions that are larger than the Earth, explosion type things, coming off of sunspots. And if that energy is pointing straight at the Earth, it gets caught up in our magnetic field, and that energy, electrons, come down our magnetic field, collide with oxygen up there about 50 or a couple hundred miles high, and that's what generates the northern lights. My job as the photographer and the aurora hunter is to be in position, you know, location, location, location. And I like to think I'm composing. Mother Nature, it's a bit of a teamwork thing, you know, she's got to put on the show, but I have to be in the right position and of course with the right tools and the know-how. I've stopped keeping track of how much time I spend out here in terms of hours. It's more in terms of weeks or months, or at this point years now. You know, it was always in me. Even when I was a kid growing up in the lower 48, I would spend nights sleeping on our trampoline, just staring at the stars. I'm in 4th grade and I'm going, wow, look at those stars. And I'd see how many nights in a row I could sleep on the trampoline. And I think my record was 23 nights in a row. So I was doing kind of strange things for an Iowa country boy. I can remember specifically the very first time I saw the northern lights. It was 1989, the peak of the solar cycle, and I was going to graduate school in Laramie, Wyoming. And all of a sudden we had heard the northern lights were out. It's like, what are those? I'd never really seen them before. And my goodness gracious, we were on top of a mountain in the Laramie Range and they were turning blood red. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And the very first picture I took, that was 1990. Now, an old film camera, Pentax K1000 on a plastic Kmart tripod. Took 2 shots on slide film and got them back. And I thought, oh my gosh, this beautiful green thing swirling about. And from that moment, I was hooked. When I realized that you could preserve the auroras on film, I just experimented a ton. I'd had a heaping stack of slides, the no good ones. The experiments gone wrong, you know, too dark, fuzzy, out of focus, too light. I had this huge garbage can full of excess slide film, and that was just the learning curve. Well, when I go out here, it's all about getting the shot. And my wife and I, we've called it the hero shot. But the hero shot is the one where you just come home and you go, look at this. And everyone goes, wow, and you feel like a hero. It's a wonderful feeling, you know. It's good for the ego, of course. It's good for the business. But if you kind of strip that away, it's good for what's inside you, because that's really the hero moment in nature. And Mother Nature's putting on this show that is just mind-blowing. It's unbelievable. When I first resigned from my day job, that was in 1996, and decided I wanted to become a full-time aurora hunter, my goal from that moment and to this day still is to get 1 hero shot a year. I figured, and I'm talking the kind that somebody wants to buy from you and hang on their wall, where the auroras are extremely bright, very active, turning colors, where you can't believe your eyes. If you're going to preserve a little sample of that with a photograph, well, it's what we call the hero shot. Wow, what a feeling. I mean, oh, you're elevated, levitating, you're lifted up. Your spirits are so high that I love that feeling. And I think I get that so much from seeing cool things in nature that I will go way out of my way to find that. And I can, you know, the next day, well, I'll be just laying there thinking about it and thinking how lucky I was or how fortunate. Of course, I just, you know, spent 2 weeks sitting there staring at the sky and not seeing anything, so you got to remember that, you know, luck is kind of a relative term, but I still just feel incredibly lucky to be even in a position to where I could have been there, taken a photograph of it, and just mainly experienced it. Well, that feeling could last for days.
Hello everyone, and thanks for sticking with us, and welcome to Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'm hosting this evening's show. On the breakup map, not a lot different. All the rivers, of course, open here and still slowly breaking up now along the Noatak River. Colville and Sagwan, some areas of open ice, and of course that'll continue to open up here over the next several days and during the upcoming, or this week. Satellite imagery today shows a pretty good breakout here in the west with lots of sunshine, Kodiak Island, up across Bristol Bay, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, Seward Peninsula looking really good with partly mostly sunny skies right on up into the Kobuk Valley, or the Noatak Valley. Also the Kobuk Valley looking pretty good as well. Clouds shifting up in the southeasterly wind flow across the Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast, and then some breaks here across the greater Fairbanks area eastward to Eagle down Northway, getting back in the clouds there. And then this batch of clouds bringing all the showers in across south central Alaska, especially this afternoon, breaking out now, clearing out down the inlet there and even the Kenai Peninsula. So looking pretty good from what you had for the last couple of days down towards Seward, Homer area, but still a band here across the eastern North Gulf Coast areas into the Copper River Basin, and a lot more cloudiness here right along and off the southeast coast as well as inland, with a few isolated showers developing there up along the north coast. Otherwise mostly sunny over toward Annette, Ketchikan, and in towards Stewart. Back to the west, a weak frontal system roughly right through this position here, and rolling this, you'll see the main low center hanging back there, dropping in towards Shemya. So south side westerly flow pushing this batch of moisture mostly off to the east. This kind of just rotating northeastward there, areas of rain, lots of clouds here, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, up across the Pribilofs, and then back to the east, and that's where the strongest winds are up here over the western Bering Sea to the north of the Aleutians. And again, on the chart today, with that cloudiness vecting northwestward there, a few light isolated rain or snow showers, pretty light in the precipitation, but cold upper low that tracked in across northern Bristol Bay, slowly moving northward. And that's where all the thunderstorm activity kicked off today, right in this general area here. Actually, a few more to the south here. A couple of these showers produce some lightning strikes as well this afternoon. Otherwise, showers here to the east, diminishing now as that frontal boundary, the old frontal boundary, weakens, and just leftover moisture now, thermal trough up to the north there, temperatures in the 60s, and weak surface high pressure here off the southeast coast, but a lot of cloudiness and maybe areas of drizzle, fog, maybe a few scattered showers, but again to the south, more sunshine, nicer conditions, and again the North Gulf Coast looking pretty wind-free here with very slack gradient. That's going to continue not only for tonight, but tomorrow as well. 1,018 millibar high right over Cook Inlet developing there. That'll continue to dry it out. And now the shower threat will be just over the northern Susitna Valley, northwestward there into the western Koyukuk, probably the Kobuk Valley. Decreasing thunderstorms, showers although hanging on probably all night long here in the green shaded areas, staying dry to the west, risk of a shower possible, and then clouds out toward the coastline. Partly and mostly cloudy, probably mostly cloudy for St. Lawrence Island, partly sunny here for Norton Bay, up across Kotzebue Sound to the northwest coast. And that area of moisture continues to push off to the north and northwest, but hanging on to the central and eastern Arctic coast for a continuation of the chance of rain or snow or mixed precipitation with little amounting to much at all. Of course, no snow accumulation expected. And then a break over the Brooks Range, and then this band of showers, and otherwise pretty fair now across the eastern interior, 40-mile country, Copper River Basin, partly cloudy or partial clearing along the North Gulf Coast, and now a batch of light rain, fog, drizzle type of precipitation here, developing right off or near and off the coast there of the area from Port Alexander on up toward possibly as far north as Elfin Cove. Otherwise, just variably to mostly cloudy here for the southeast coast and dry. Out to the west, this front trying to push its way eastward, but weakening as it goes. So as the chance of rain increases for Nikolsky tonight, and then some moisture here develops and brings a greater chance of precipitation on the southern coast of the Alaska Peninsula from roughly Chignik on over toward Falls Pass. The Bristol Bay area northwestward is going to remain dry, and we'll see for tomorrow that frontal boundary doesn't really make much progress at all. The low hangs back to the west now near Amchitka Island and just west of Adak. So light winds, maybe some clearing there for Adak and Atka with the front off to the east. A risk of a few showers for the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. This front weakening and the precipitation field really starting to weaken along with it, so really not reaching the eastern Aleutians to any great extent. Mostly sunny here along the southwest coast with light winds. Same thing for Bristol Bay. In toward Kodiak Island, easterly flow here coming across the Gulf, the southern Gulf, may keep more cloudiness in along the east side of the island, but any shower threat looks like it'll stay off the coast or to the south. High pressure, partly to mostly sunny south central Alaska tomorrow. Maybe isolated thunderstorms developing here, mostly Talkeetnas or over the Copper River Basin, say around Paxson on up toward the eastern Alaska Range. Otherwise, the Tanana Valley, partly to mostly sunny with the main shower threat back along this trough axis, which is the current one there today, a little farther to the south, and it lifts northward. And mostly cloudy skies, showers, isolated thunderstorms, north slope across the Brooks Range and southward. Otherwise, it's Panhandle, partly to mostly cloudy with a chance of a shower or two, with a trough, a little more enhanced area precipitation off to the southwest there, but hanging in over the Queen Charlotte Islands at least through tomorrow afternoon. And then looking ahead to Wednesday, this system tracks eastward and then spreads some moisture northward, tracks eastward tomorrow night, Tuesday night, spreads moisture for a good chance of rain. Definitely some good shot of rain coming into the Queen Charlotte's across Dixon Entrance and then eventually into the southern southeast coast. Working northward, getting more showery as you head north, say toward Juneau, especially toward Skagway. And you should be out of it for Yakutat there with just some clouds. Otherwise, mostly sunny along the North Gulf Coast with light winds, light variable winds, up 10 knots or less, or 5 to 15 knots all through this area here, inland, down across Kodiak Island. Keeping a little bit of a stronger breeze there along Kodiak Island there on the east side, but definitely winds everywhere else coming down. Same thing along the coast here, eastern Bering Sea, light wind conditions, offshore flow, mostly sunny all the way out to the coastline, possibly including Nunivak Island, maybe St. Lawrence Island, probably holding on to some low clouds and fog there. Will be a little more extensive on up to the strait, but much of the interior looking really good here on Wednesday. Mostly sunny skies. I just threw some clouds in along the Alaska Range, developing in the afternoon. No showers the way it looks at this point in time, and a few clouds up to the north. Otherwise, high pressure grabbing up the scene for the Arctic coast. Again, light wind conditions there. A little bit more of a breeze still, but switching directions, becoming westerly now instead of easterly. That low center there pulling off to the northeast, and again the heaviest rain over the southern southeast coast. And this front, areas of light rain, nothing really heavy, maybe a little bit heavier here on the south side of the Alaska Peninsula with a little more upslope, and then rain spreading all the way up to Kodiak Island there. Again, easterly flow around that weak surface high just south of the Kenai Peninsula. So it looks like tomorrow will be the drier of the upcoming 2 days. Otherwise, gusty northwest winds back out to the west there, maybe up to 25 knots. Temperatures across the Panhandle today, 64 up at Skagway, otherwise just 48 at Elfin Cove, kind of a range here, 50 degrees Port Alexander and Sitka, 58 at Wrangell, 59 degrees down at Ketchikan, Stewart at 70, mid to upper 40s for the North Gulf Coast, just 44 this afternoon at Palmer, 49 there at Kenai, 54 Homer, and Copper River Basin, lower 50s, Talkeetna just 50 degrees, into the lower 60s, a little bit of sun breaking out across the Tanana Valley there at Fairbanks, all the way up to Eagle and Fort Yukon. Cooler upper 40s back to the west. And for the Koyukuk Valley, Bettles had 55 degrees today, Arctic Village up to 57, and lower to mid 30s for much of the Arctic coast. Cape Lisburne did reach 40, then back into the upper 30s here over the northwest. Nome 49 degrees and a cool 48 at McGrath, warms up to 56 down at Bethel, lower 50s along the Yukon Delta coast, 37 Savunga, mid 40s for the Pribilofs, eastern Aleutians, 8 Akanatka, all in the mid to upper 40s, and looks like 55 degree reading there at Cold Bay. They came up from a record low this morning of 27 above a record low for the date, and then otherwise lower 50s all the way up into northeast Bristol Bay and Kodiak Island. Lows for tonight, let's see, we've got again kind of a warm area up here over the Yukon Flats, upper 40s there, and upper 40s near 50 for the southern southeast coast. Otherwise, lower 30s, cool into the upper 20s on the western Arctic coast, southward to the Bering Strait, back into the mid 30s for the Pribilofs, upper 30s Aleutians, and 30s to near 40 here south central Alaska, Copper River Basin. Excuse me. And for the highs tomorrow, lower to mid 60s, actually near 50 on the southwest coast, warming as you get inland just a ways into the 60s, lower to mid, and that extends right up to the northeast across the Tanana Valley, all the way over to the border. Warmest location looks like will be again down here over the southern southeast coast, mid 60s, call it 65 to 70, and mid 60s all the way up to Juneau, Skagway, and Haines. For flying weather, we've got late tonight into early tomorrow morning, a big extensive area of IFR covering the Arctic coast into the North Slope, right on down toward probably the Brooks Range, north side. I don't think much will get south of the crest of the mountains to St. Lawrence Island. Then a big swath of VFR out here over the northern and eastern Bering Sea down to the Alaska Peninsula. IFR south or west of the coastline here, but again, riding right into Kodiak Island there, with that easterly flow on the east side, and then some remaining stuff up along the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range. And then with that front, slow moving, a narrow band of IFR pushing east of Atka, heading in toward Nikolsky. For tomorrow afternoon, that just about dissipates altogether, leaving just marginal VFR behind from roughly almost to St. George Island, all the way back to Shimei and Attu. Otherwise, good VFR again along the southwest coast, both tomorrow and Wednesday as well. IFR, St. Lawrence Island, up along now, right along the Arctic coast, VFR over the interior. Good VFR now, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, all the way down the Panhandle tomorrow afternoon and into the Gulf of Alaska. Anaktuvik, marginal VFR at times with some leftover moisture. Adigan, marginal VFR, showery type conditions. Lake Clark and Merrow, though, good VFR. Definitely VFR for rainy. VFR clouds around, though. Windy VFR. And Isabel, same forecast. Mentasta, VFR. Tanita, VFR. Portage, VFR tomorrow. And Chilkoot and White, marginal to start with, becoming VFR probably by late in the morning at the latest. Definitely by the afternoon. Freezing levels, 2,000 feet, cold pocket here over southern Alaska into the Gulf. And then kind of up to 4,000 feet, falling back to 2 out to the west there, 2 to 4,000 feet across the Bering. And then the warmer air with that upper ridge that's slipping eastward here, get up to 8 to 10,000 feet over northwest Canada and British Columbia. Icing Above about 4,000 feet, possible mixed here, Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast. Icing free everywhere else on down the southeast coast, west side, no icing. And then with that weakening front, you could see some possibilities of some light rime icing with probably no chance of even seeing moderate there above about 5,000 feet here from roughly AKwx on over, trying to come into the Nikolsky area. And the upper-level wind flow chart, again, that front stalls out here, westerly flow, and then hits a southeast wind flow tomorrow. And that really just holds that frontal boundary in place there. Southwest at about 40 here, with that trough axis swinging up across the northwest part of the state. No flow over southern Alaska. Southeasterlies at about 50 knots, coming back up with that high pressure area, edging its way off to the east. For the 9,000 foot winds, light southeast flow here for the Panhandle, turning east to northeast, but the strongest winds at 20 knots south of Kodiak Island. High pressure, light variable winds in across southern Alaska. Low pressure up near the Brooks Range there. So there will be a band of stronger winds, southwesterlies, 20 to 35 knots through that area. And then some 25 to 30 knotters there coming across eastern Aleutians, wrapping back around from the northwest on the west side of that system. 3,000 feet, southeasterlies 20 to roughly 30 knots, otherwise 20 to 25 for the Alaska Peninsula. Across the Pribilofs, right over the or under the trough axis there, less wind here along the Aleutians, but out toward Shimia, west of Kiska Island, northwest at 30. High pressure, light winds, southern Alaska. And westerlies now 3,000 feet up here, west-southwesterlies at about 10 to 20, not as strong as at 9,000 feet, and really light winds for the southeast coast. Turbulence-wise, again with that southwest wind up there, areas of light to isolated moderate chop below about 5,000 feet, and also along the Alaska Peninsula here, on out across eastern Aleutians, Pribilofs, southeast wind flow there, mechanical turbulence, and then more of a chance of seeing some moderate chop out west there from Amchitka and Kiska to Shimia and Attu. And rolling right into the ice edge here, this swath opening up pretty good with really almost becoming sea ice free in that zone there. And then the shore fast ice on the eastern Arctic coast continuing to break up and starting to pull away from the coast, or it already has. And that pattern will continue for the next several days. And for the marine forecast here, south 20 knots tomorrow afternoon, northern Lynn Canal, otherwise mostly north, very light, just 10 knots along the coast. Call it east on the extreme north coast there, but seas down to 3 to 4 feet. About the same as the inside waters there. Seas, northwest winds 15, seas 3 to 4 feet, highest up there in northern Lynn Canal. And then for Wednesday, northwest winds at 10. Really, this whole zone right through here, pretty light and variable, 10 knots or less, 5 to 6 foot seas. Southeasterlies on the increase. Wednesday afternoon, small craft advisories on the south coast. Clarence Strait, southeast of 15, light winds up toward Stevens Passage. And for Prince William Sound tomorrow, variable to northwest at 10, and then northerlies at 15 become northeast at 15, down across the Barren Islands, kicking up to 25 knots here for Kodiak Island, both on the east side and Shelikof Strait. Light variable conditions for Kachemak Bay, and that pattern extends up through Cook Inlet. And then for the Wednesday forecast, this 15 knots, I think I can barely see it there. I think the opacity got really turned down, but that's north 15 there, south of the Forelands. Back to variable 10, northeast 20 knots, under small craft advisory level, Shelikof Strait. Small crafts holding on to the east side of Kodiak Island, and about 15 for the Barrens become light and variable across all of the North Gulf Coast, including Prince William Sound, maybe a little more discernible direction there out of the northwest, but still only 10 knots forecast with seas at just 2 feet. 4 feet here for the North Gulf Coast and the Barrens, and then with the stronger winds kicking up to 7 feet for Kodiak. And for Bristol Bay, light southeasterlies tomorrow, east 20 knots for the Alaska Peninsula, Castle Cape to Sitkinak, east of 25. And then for the Wednesday outlook, that becomes northeast, holds on to that same wind speed, 8 foot seas now, and northeast 20 knots on down toward Cape Sarachev. And on the north side of the peninsula, northeasterlies at 15, all the way up into Bristol Bay, seas only 2 to 3 feet. Eastern Aleutians shaping up like this for tomorrow, east to southeast, 20 knots on Alaska Island. And then here near Nikolsky and just to the west, southeast 20 to 25. Adak and Atka falling back, coming down to 15, mostly out of the south. and then southwest 20 becomes northerly and kicks up to 25 there on the western side of that low complex across Shimmy and Attu, maybe Kiska Island. Then as that thing pulls off, looks like northwesterlies advance. Winds become northwest and advance eastward here to the south side of Adak and Atka, all at 25 knots, 8 to 9 foot seas. Lighter on the north side, Bering Sea side of the islands, and light and variable over toward Nikolsky, and then southeast 20 on the north side of Unalaska Island, otherwise south 15. And then things turn westerly at 20, northwest 25. Small craft advisories on the south coasts, or the southern zone here of Adak and Atka. And for the Bering Sea, southeast 20 for the Pribilofs, east 20 St. Matthew Island, east-southeast 15 along the coast, northeast 15 St. Lawrence Island. Wednesday outlook, east 20 for the Pribilofs, still 20 knotters here for the northern Bering Sea, mostly St. Matthew Island a little to the west, otherwise northeast 15 from St. Lawrence Island all the way down to Kuskokwim Bay with seas just 2 to 3 feet. Arctic coast, eastern Beaufort Sea coast east of 15, call it 20 knots on the central coast, swinging around to the west at 15, northwest 15 from Cape Beaufort on down in toward Kotzebue Sound. And then 5 knots all's in the forecast there from the northwest here for Wales to up to Cape Thompson. Southwest 10 from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort. Southwest turn westerly, all at 20 knots. Tonight again, scattered thunderstorms diminishing, areas of showers concentrated mostly in this green shaded area here with an upper level trough pulling northward, drying out southern Alaska, rain along and off the coast of the Panhandle, a weakening front pushing rain, trying to push it into the eastern Aleutians. Just look for some showers though tomorrow there for the Alaska Peninsula. Trough showers most likely up over the north central interior, and a very nice day in store for Wednesday.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.